Welcome to Podadelphia. My name is Dave DiOrio. You can find me on Twitter at @fat_lobster, and I am joined by two members of the Joel Embiid Prayer Circle. What's up, Sarah and Gene?
Hey, Dave. Hey, Gene. Hey, fellow parishioners. We're gathering together to lift Joel's sore knee into the light and put good vibes. Pray to whatever deity you like for his health and speedy recovery. I am Sarah Siders. You can find me on Twitter at Sarah Siders, where I try to be a little less blasphemous. And you can find the show at Podadelphia, where I make no excuses for blasphemy or not.
And I'm Gene Zelak. You can find me on Twitter at Producer Gene. And generally, I am a orthopedic agnostic, but I am feeling very spiritual, at least in the short term.
Special shoes for that church?
Yeah. So yeah, special shoes, special all sorts of special sleeves, braces,
Okay.
lots of Velcro. Basically, we're keeping the Velcro business in
I gotcha. Nice.
profitable. So you can find me, as I said, at Producer Gene. You can find the show at Podadelphia because we're still doing this dumb bit.
What dumb bit? Before we get started, I just want to make I would give an explanation for my wardrobe choice today. I'm not wearing any sort of Brooklyn Nets inspired cap or anything like that. I literally just came back from coaching a Little League baseball game, and we are the REDLINE Rays. So I'm not throwing any support in the way of the Nets tonight. Go C's, which I very rarely ever say. So, who just went yard? Sorry, we got the Phillies game on here as well. McCutchen just went yard. All right, so we're going to start off the show today talking about whatever that was in the Sixers game last night. So obviously the big story today, Embiid goes down with an injury early in the game. He only plays 11 minutes. Sore knee. Still radio silence from Camp Sixers about what is going on with Joel Embiid. What are we all hearing?
The last I heard, this was as of 5:30 Eastern time today, was that he is listed as questionable for tomorrow's game, Wednesday the 2nd. He's questionable for that game, and that was on the official NBA report or whatever, again, due to a sore knee soreness. So,
okay, is that up or down from doubtful? That's more likely to play than doubtful or less?
If I was more careful with my words, I would say it would be more likely to play, but I was wrong. I used questionable and doubtful interchangeably. I saw that he was listed as doubtful.
All right, that was like what Woj reported, right? That he's doubtful. So to me, when I put the tea leaves out and I look at that to me says he's okay, right? But we're going to be overly cautious. Like if this was a game 7, he'd play. To me, that's the way that sounds.
And I'll be honest, maybe I'm the pessimist of the bunch. I don't think you would see Joel Embiid again in this series unless it gets to a game 7. I think that we need to depend on the guys that we've got without him to try and close this out in game 5 or 6, which I absolutely, truly do believe that if there was a series where they could knock off a team without Joel Embiid, this is the series that you want to do it and be overly cautious and not bring Joel Embiid back too soon where he may. This seems like the kind of injury where he's going to favor and do things that he doesn't normally do. And that's where you get those sorts of injuries where you have like those sort of like reflexive injuries or injuries that Dr. Keith would be probably better at explaining this than I am.
Well, we don't know what it is. I would have
like an ankle injury or something because you're overcompensating for what you already, where you have actual pain.
Yeah, I mean, I would have put out the Dr. Keith signal, but I mean, I'm sure what he's going to say is, I have no idea. Like, they haven't said anything. I have no idea what to go on. It's got right knee soreness. That could mean like a multitude of different things, ranging from, it's fine to, this is going to be something that continues to linger, not just in this series, but the next one. So it's like, we really don't know. I'd love to have him on next Tuesday. Well, hopefully I would not love to have him on next Tuesday, because that means it would still be like a talking point or, right, something that we need to bring up. But like, I'm seeing 2 triple burgers and he's good. I'm feeling very confident that without Embiid at home, with a little bit more leveled out refereeing, like, we're not going to have any trouble dispatching the Wizards tomorrow night.
Oh yeah. I was very comfortable thinking that they would, win the series. I wasn't certain, okay, we'll just do it in 5 instead of doing it in 4. But that's good to hear. I trust your judgment better than mine. My concern with Embiid being out is not beating the Wizards. My concern is what's his health going to look like next round, and God willing, the round after that.
Well, that's why it would be lovely to get this series over with, not deal with this crap anymore, and just have a little rest time while the Knicks and hopefully the Knicks can win at least another game here and force us to a game 6 and hopefully even to a game 7. So I just don't think I got some support here. Yeah, no trouble tomorrow night. And I think if they had a game plan going in, knowing that they weren't going to be with Embiid, again, it would have been an easier night. And it was just like a shitty set of circumstances that like a series of unfortunate events that like all lined up, like the stars all lined up for the Wizards last night, that they were able to pull this off and run around that arena like there's some hot shit, because they took us down when our star player goes out in the first quarter. Well, it's going to be a different story when you come into Philly. All arena restrictions are off. We're going to rip the lid off of this Wells Fargo Center for the first time in a year and a half or whatever, and it's going to be bananas. I need to know who's ringing the bell tomorrow night, and it's going to be full-throated vitriol for the Wizards from whistle to whistle tomorrow night. I know it. Gina,
I think that was one of the things that, like you sort of brought up. This is not a team that is inexperienced in playing without Joel Embiid. They've done it a lot throughout the course of the season. I think partly not necessarily in preparation for this. I think ideally you'd want to have him for every game of the playoffs. But in the event that he was not available, they do have enough depth in other places that they can sort of adjust their offense and, they can change up their rotations to sort of compensate for the fact that he's not going to be on the floor. I think that they have to come out and be prepared to not let up. If they can jump on the Wizards early, they have got to not step off of the throttle. They can't have one of those lazy second and early third quarters where they are allowing a team to come, maybe they've got a 15-point lead and they let it get down to like 5 or 6 when the second unit's in. I think that they've got to sort of play this as if it's a true elimination game as far as Doc Rivers' rotation is returned. I think maybe he goes to 8 men. And, I will say the bright spot from the game yesterday was Tyrese Maxey for me. I'd like to see them find a way to use his offense again, sort of the way that things worked out yesterday. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody that's been watching the Sixers all year. But yeah, so I think tomorrow is in a situation like this when you're a Sixers team that's a number 1 seed. I don't want to call it a must win, but I think that you really need to put your mental strategic focus on getting in there tomorrow, getting the job done, and getting the hell out of this series.
Yeah, I think it's going to be completely like business-like tomorrow night. They're just going to go in there and just take care of business. And it's not. I don't think the game's going to be close. I don't know what the line is. I'd be willing to lay 6 or 7. It probably won't be as high as it has been in previous games with Joel with the questionable status for him tomorrow night. But I'm fully confident that they're going to take care of business. Let's see. Oh, hey, Sarah comments on here. Thoughts on Hackabed, which was like a big, to me, it was a big nothing burger in the game. It was like, oh, look at this thing that they're employing here for 20 seconds that sent Ben Simmons to the line. I think it was like 2:34 left in the game until the final 2 minutes before they would get an away from the play penalty. So it sent Ben to the line. I think he got 6 free throws, and he was like a 50% shooter for those. I don't think it had a major outcome in the game, but it was something interesting. What are your thoughts?
I was surprised when I learned just how little they did it, because to me it felt excessive. And then I saw, well, he went 3 for 6. I'm like, okay, so they only fouled him 3 times. At the time, it felt excessive, and I think I didn't have a very objective view of it. It felt like it didn't just feel like strategy for an outmatched basketball team. It felt like disrespectful. It felt like, hey, Joel's out, we're going to make Ben prove he can beat us, and kept sending him to the line. And, for a game that right before that was in reach, it really,
But I don't feel like it was out of reach after it was over. Like with 2 minutes left in that game, it was still winnable at that point.
No, that's true, but it didn't feel that way. That's what I'm saying. I had a very hard time being objective in that moment, because it really felt like it felt disrespectful, and it felt a bit helpless. Now, going 3 for 6, that's all right. I mean, that's 1.5 times, going up the court sort of thing. So it's in the calm light of day, in the clear light of day, I felt differently. But at the time, I hated it. It felt disrespectful. It felt chaotic.
Well, from a fan perspective, I'm like, this is weak sauce. Do you want your team winning in this manner? It's not a championship. It's not how a championship team goes out and proves itself and wins games. So obviously, you're a slimy 8 seed. You're trying to worm your way into not getting swept. You'll do anything necessary. It's obviously, it's a tactic, but it's certainly not like, to me, it's like, oh, so my team can't stop the Sixers from going down here on a possession that we have to foul Ben Simmons on and not rely on our success, but we're going to rely on your failure to win this game. And that's, to me, that does, I don't want my coach playing that way. It may be, I don't know, Annie Lennox may say that that's the way that, is best to play that game, but I'm sorry. I just explained that inside joke. Sometimes we call it analytics Annie Lennox. Walking on broken glass.
Really? That's your go-to for Annie Lennox?
Sweet dreams are made of these.
Yeah, I mean, I really think something from the Eurythmics catalog.
Well, that's what I didn't want. I wanted to do something from the solo.
Okay.
Career as a, if I'm, okay, whatever.
Okay, so.
Okay.
But I'll be honest. I think the bigger story may have been today. Doc Rivers coming out and basically saying we're going to leave Ben Simmons on the court.
Well, hold on. I want to get there. But I want to talk about Annie Lennox for a second, because Annie Lennox actually says not to foul Ben Simmons, and we talked about this a little earlier today. There is something called the Hackulator on the internet that you can, if you Google Hackulator, you can find, and it will tell you if you put in how much time is remaining, what you're trailing by, and the person you are fouling's free throw shooting percentage. It will tell you if you should foul this person or not and send them to the line. And if you put in last night's scenario into the Hackulator, it does say do not foul Ben Simmons in that case. He is a 61% career free throw shooter, and you would need him around 25% to make the calculation work out in your favor. So it was not analytically correct to foul Ben, although it may have trended that way. Anyway, sorry, Gene, your point about Doc Rivers today.
So, I guess he was asked either last night or today about, I think it was last night.
Oh, yeah,
about,
that's what I'm talking about.
Is the idea to take Ben Simmons, to sort of counter the hack of Ben, to take Ben Simmons off the court, and you run a rotation that doesn't include him. You put Tobias and, some other combination of players that are higher percentage foul shot shooters in those situations. And basically Doc Rivers is like, Ben's going to be on the court. That's what we're going to do. I'm not going to change how we finish games. I'm not going to take Ben's, the way I understood it is I'm not going to take Ben Simmons, what he brings as a defender and the other things that he does off of the court just to prevent the other team from fouling him. Sort of as, I guess, a vote of confidence. What else are you going to say about your star player? You're going to say, like, absolutely, I need to make sure that I get him off the floor next time so that he doesn't lose the game for us.
But why does Doc have to be an ass about it? Like, it's a valid question to say, hey, would you consider changing your strategy at all with like 3 to 2 minutes left in the game if this is a strategy they're going to employ? And Doc goes, well, I'm not taking him off the court unless you want me to take him off for the entire game. And if you do that, then I know you don't know anything about basketball. It's like, whoa, yo, Hoss. That's not what I said. All I said was, what are you going to do in this instance? Because, if Ben wasn't on the court, they wouldn't have done it. So, I don't know. It's a question worth asking, and I'm not saying bench him for the entire game, obviously.
Yeah, and asking the question isn't necessarily even advocating for it. So many times, but
everyone's just doing their job.
Yeah, well, and so many times, journalists like to say, "Oh, we're the mouthpiece of the fans," And this is a scenario where, there's a lot of people watching this game who would have had that question, and I was one of them. I didn't want them to pull Ben off the court. But at the time, I was growing so frustrated with it that I was thinking, like, well, do we just get him off to go, all right, stop that, and we'll get him back in under 2 minutes? But the question should be asked. Now for a crappy journalist, for people who, have their column 3/4 written before they, go to the press conference, well, that's not great, but it should be part of your due diligence to go, hey, Doc, did you even consider this? And the answer, can be no, of course.
But then you have to beg Nolan Patrick to admit that he was concerned about headaches while he was playing.
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome.
I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. But fine. The point to do it responsibly is Sam Carchidi did not.
Right.
It was. I listened to. You got a little of it, so now you're gonna get it all.
Okay, open the door.
It was the getaway day, and Sam Carchidi asked AV, he asked Chuck Fletcher, and he asked Nolan Patrick, "Hey guys, how hesitant was Nolan early in the season about getting hit? You can tell he didn't want to get hit." AV said, "I didn't see that." Chuck Fletcher said, "I didn't see that." Nolan Patrick goes, "I don't know, maybe, I guess." And then that's the crux of like 3 stories.
And then we get a 1,500 word article about it.
Yeah, and people I respect going like, "Oh, well, you saw that Patrick said he was wary early in the season of getting hit." And he really didn't. Like, someone put those words in his mouth and he's like, "Yeah, I guess." So there's a difference between that and asking the question. It's a good question to ask, just like it was a good question to ask Doc Rivers. But if there's no story there, then there's no story there. You move on. You cover the next thing,
despite whatever you've written before the press conference.
Exactly.
After a year of watching Doc Rivers press conferences, I will tell you, I am become a much firmer believer in the camp that Doc Rivers used press conferences to communicate things as much to his players as he does to the fan base. I think that a lot of the things that he says, where we scratch our heads and are like, why is he taking such a hard stance, or why is he saying what he's saying? It's as much because he sort of is trying to take the heat onto himself so that he becomes sort of the lightning rod or the story, rather than reporters going to Ben Simmons and being like, do you think you should come off the court, or trying to take his focus away from what he needs to be doing. Doc's like, I'm going to say something that may come off, may even be outrageous, with the idea that I'm going to become the narrative, I'm going to become the story. And
I just think you got to be careful. I think you got to be careful because you may come up in the future where that scenario is going down, and it's not going to be round one when you're up 3-0 against the Wizards, and it's going to be, you're 2-2 against the Nets, or you're you're trying to win a championship, and it's the last 2 minutes, and then what are you going to do? In which case, I guess this will all be water under the bridge at that point. It's like, who gives a shit? Just win the fucking game.
And I think that Doc Rivers is a smart enough coach and has been in situations like that where he already knows what he's going to do in that situation. Right. He doesn't need to tell you after game 4 of the Wizards' first round.
And who knows, if you wash out against the Nets, who knows what Morey's plan is with Ben Simmons. And I know there is talk a lot about like preserving Ben Simmons' image, just to leave that kind of escape hatch if we need it.
I mean, going back to there was conversations that Ben Simmons was basically gone for James Harden, like that the conversations sort of had been had, and that deal fell apart.
Yeah, well,
late in the process, like real late in the process. So, it's the sort of thing where we know that Ben Simmons may have even already had the phone call where it was like, "Hey, man, you're gone to Houston or whatever." So I think that there is a certain philosophy probably in that front office that of the higher pieces on the trophy shelf or on the mantle, that Ben Simmons might be the one that you're willing to be like,
yeah.
What were you thinking? What would make an offer?
Yeah. Well, Boston's hanging around in this game. Maybe we'll see if they can force a game 6. Hey, let's talk about, and this kind of started, I feel like for us, this kind of started, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago with the Phillies. But there's been a lot of like fan misbehavior going on around professional sports lately. And the Phillies had a game where 2 people ran on to the field. And now, in the NBA season, we've got people spitting on people, throwing popcorn, running onto the court we saw last night, or attempting to run on the court, which is wild. I don't know if I've seen
I've never seen that
recently. They didn't get very far either. But thoughts on this? Is this just like pandemic? Oh, I need to express myself somehow.
I think you're right. I think the pantomiming. Lord, heal my center.
Yeah. I'm gonna slip that in this Sunday if we still have resolution.
You're gonna slip that in. If Embiid's still a question on Saturday or Sunday or Friday evening, whenever local congregations worship around Philadelphia, regardless of the denomination of the religion, it's gonna be in the service. Like if Embiid's still a question mark,
when they do Sunday, like the special, and especially our
yes, I'm gonna go up there and say
Camerooni.
Yes. But before we were distracted by more prayers for Joel, Dave, you had mentioned bad fan behavior, like Russell Westbrook coming to get your popcorn, and I do think it is. We've been locked up for a year. They talk about there's this thought a few years back that fan behavior at stadiums in general was getting worse or more drunken because ticket prices were going up, and this was becoming more of a special occasion. So people would go all out and they drink a lot and they get crazy and they go, hey, I paid my money to be here.
I see what you're saying.
So
I paid for this.
Exactly. I paid for this. And, and they're going to let loose. And we've been cooped up for a year. This summer's going to be crazy. It is. It's if you are vaccinated and out and about, I've been telling
hot vaccinated summer.
Oh yeah, it's going to be like VE day out there. Like you're going to grab random people in the streets, and it's going to be okay for one summer only. So I think be prepared to see more of this, and especially what we saw the other night in DC. That scared the hell out of me. That felt like shades of Monica Seles.
Yeah,
you know, it did not feel safe. It didn't feel, as much as it's awful to pour popcorn on somebody or spit on somebody or do something like that. This felt dangerous, but I think we're going to see more of it and until life really does feel normal again.
Well, here's kind of my fear. Can we stop pretending we didn't enjoy the popcorn on Westbrook? Okay, there's a little part of me enjoyed it. But here's my fear. My fear is that basketball stops being the accessible sport that it is. I mean, it is the game where you sit the closest, I mean, like there's no divide, there's no net, there's no glass, there's no, parts or spatial distancing from there, like in the other sports. You are on top of the action, or you can be if you have, but do you think you would ever see basketball do something to protect the players? Like, I don't know, put them in a box or something.
Well, I mean, like you said, they have sort of created a barrier to entry. It's those seats are, as a friend of ours would say, those seats are expensive. So
you just can't be an asshole. You got to be a rich asshole to pull this kind of stuff.
So I think what
rich people are never assholes.
Right.
I think what the implication there is that the NBA has sort of had this belief that if you're willing to shell it out, that you're not going to risk that sort of embarrassment. Then what the NBA is realizing is people have very little shame at this point. You were talking about fears. One of the things that I think
sold my Dogecoin for these tickets.
there's an office somewhere, I think in ESPN, where there's a very short man, because it's a short man's disease, where they're sitting around waiting for something to happen in an arena where a Philly team is playing, where they can be like, aha, snowballs at Santa. Yeah, let's get it going.
So I have to. Gene talked about snowballs at Santa, so I had to remove him from the stream. That's a violation. I'm just kidding. Gene, that's lazy. That's lazy reporting. You can't bring up.
I mean, doesn't it always seem like anytime there's any sort of bad fan behavior that it doesn't really get to a fever pitch until a Philadelphia fan has done something poor. You know what I mean? There have been lots of incidents all over that this sort of thing has been happening, but not until Westbrook gets popcorn does it really start to get forefront on the national conversation.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've gone to a lot of games, and the old like Philly thing, right? When they announce an opposing player, everyone yells sucks, right? Like, oh, bro, Russell Westbrook sucks, and I mean, like my kids even do it, and I let them do it because it's part of the experience. And we've always been hard on the opposition, and I think that that's fine. I don't know that encourages people to be physical towards the opposition or throw look, popcorn, I think in the grand scheme of things is pretty innocuous. I mean, you didn't throw like a beer can full of beer or a battery or snowballs or what. So like nothing was going to actually hurt him physically. It was wildly inappropriate, completely disrespectful, all that stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, now spitting on a player is another level. attempting to tackle her, or who knows what that guy was trying to do in Washington. And who knows, he could have been a Philly fan for all I know. There's a lot there. You don't know what the intent is on a lot of this stuff. I like to know how a stadium enforces a lifetime ban. How does that work?
I imagine poorly. I mean, although, like, you don't have to show ID to get into the building. And so you can get banned from buying tickets through the official website, but buying them on the secondary market, I don't know how you stop that. Having your friend buy them for you. And right now I feel like I'm talking about like handguns. Like, okay, there's going to be a string purchase, but it would be easy to get in. I think you just have to be on your best behavior. And I feel like once you get thrown out of one stadium, you're either going to do it again or gonna be on your best behavior.
Thoughts on this comment here, because Aiden says here, I love that we as Phillies fans are douchebags, we're sore losers, we're the worst winners. It's the way it should be. Snowballs, popcorn, middle fingers, etc. It's not like he punched him. Thoughts on, like, just own it, Philly. Like, at this point, you're never going to wash it off. The national media is never going to say, like, we've turned a corner with Philly fans, or they're never going to say everywhere, this happens everywhere. It's not just Philly. It's never going to happen. So you know what? Like, fuck it, man. Like, let's just own this shit. And don't come here. Don't come here and think you're going to get an easy way, because it's going to be hard on you from the second you walk into that arena to the second you get on the bus to leave. And even then it might get bad.
Yeah, I'll let Gene kick it first. But I agree. I agree with that sentiment. I can go in more detail in a moment, but Gene, I'll let you start on it.
I think that I absolutely felt this way for a long time. And I think that what really turned me around was, honestly, and not to bring the whole vibe down, but I heard a story about that Hank Aaron told when he was talking about when he broke the home run record. And if you remember, famously, when he's rounding the bases after he broke Babe Ruth's record, he's actually approached as he's coming around, I think, second base, I think it was that early, where he was approached by two fans, not journalists, two fans. In the stadium.
I mean, everyone's seen that highlight. Like, what we're talking about.
What Hank Aaron said in the interview that I saw was, he said that, he had anxiety. He had a fear for his life when he sees these people coming out of nowhere. And the idea that in that moment where he is the only person that is ever going to experience, like, on the planet, he is the only person that's going to ever experience what it feels like to break Babe Ruth's home run record. He's the only one that ever gets to do it. And instead of being able to just have a pure emotional response in that moment, he had to worry about, am I about to get stabbed? In what could be the emotional pinnacle of human experience, he's got to worry, are these two chuckleheads going to come and stab me? Like, there is something about that particular instance that sort of crystallized for me that there are moments where you have to allow the players and the game to proceed without your interaction as the fan. Like, I am all for being like the 12th man or the 6th man or the however, or, whatever extra, the extra goalie in hockey. But to a certain degree, like the game itself, between the lines, there has to be a certain reverence where you don't impose some sort of change of direction in the game because of your fandom. And ask Bartman about that, because he'll tell you, because he got a lot of shit for what he did. And I don't even think what he did was necessarily wrong. So that's sort of my take. I think that absolutely, I like that we have a reputation, but I also would like it. And there's not a particular Philadelphia example where we interfered in a game and changed the outcome, but I really do like the idea that the game itself is not going to be tainted by bad fans.
Yeah, and I don't want that. And I think But I think there's a line, and I think for a long time, and for the most part, Philadelphia gets that line right. I love the Philadelphia attitude, not just as a Philadelphia sports fan, but the line that we know what's being a enthusiastic, intimidating crowd versus what's taking it too far. I think that line between sports hate and real hate, it's unfortunately in this world where everything's so magnified and polarized, sometimes they do come scary close together, but harmless sports hate where you don't truly hate the person, but I'm gonna boo you until I'm hoarse. I love, going to a Flyers, Penguins, Flyers, Rangers, Flyers, Devils game, and then the next
just don't
day,
eat the horse shit. That won't help.
Yeah, don't eat the horse shit.
No.
But don't punch a horse cop. Don't punch anybody. Like, unless they punch first. Then we can talk. But
no punching in the face.
No punching in the face. That's the number one rule of fighting your friends. But knowing the line and coming right up to it with the threat of going over it, but not actually doing it, it's a big difference than going on the field. That's Bush League. That's stupid. When, in the height of the Phillies' popularity, where it was a big thing to run onto the field, and the kid got tased, good. He deserved it. And
I totally forgot about that.
Oh, I won't. That image is burned into my mind.
I think but I think the fans are a part of sports, and they're an important part of sports. And live fans, make a world of difference. We spent a year watching sports with no fans, and it definitely took away from the experience a lot. Like I thought I was going to be more interested because I was going to hear a little bit more of the game and stuff. It's like, nah, man, I'll take the fans every time. And I think a lot of those highlights, Gene, like you talked about the Hank Aaron, and when the band comes on the field, or like when the, they remember we used to have the goalposts torn down when there was a big upset and stuff like that. Stuff's awesome, man. I miss that stuff. And I just wish that people were cool about it, so we didn't have to think someone's life was in danger whenever this kind of crap happens. It's just sucks. I wish it was back when I don't know, whatever. You could run on the field without.
Hank Aaron was sort of a good example because nobody's going to accuse that of being a new highlight. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's sort of something that's always been part.
But you're so invested in it that you want to be a part of it. Like you're so invested in it that their success is your success, and you feel like you've done just as much work and put in just as much time and effort into being a fan as they have into being a player. And that's why we say we. And I never begrudge somebody for saying we, because I feel like it's a community and I'm part of that community. And I live and die with these teams just like the players do, sometimes more than the players do. So goddamn right, I'll say we, because I'm part of this thing. And, so is everybody else that's a fan of the team. So I understand that. I just don't understand the look at me aspect of going onto the field or doing some shit like that.
That's the biggest FU when somebody says to you, oh, well, what position did you play? What position did you play?
Yeah, you don't get it,
were you the shortstop?
Then you don't get it.
Yeah, that's long been the position of the podcast. And for anyone, we are all about we. And it works on a visceral level, but from an intellectual one, they are the Philadelphia Eagles, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Philadelphia Phillies. But they are representing our city, or at least our television market. And, until they become the Comcast Sixers, they're ours. They represent Philadelphia. We are playing that game. Who is playing Philadelphia? I've never been on the Sixers. I never will be on the Sixers, but I can claim this town, this area, this city as my home. And as long as they're wearing the name of our city on their jerseys, then we get to say we.
And that's why there is nothing worse than someone who is born and raised within the friendly confines of the Philadelphia area and the suburbs, but insists on rooting for the Dallas Cowboys. Those people specifically are the worst. If you live in Dallas and root for the Cowboys, well, then I mean, I sort of get it. But if you grew up in Roxborough and decide that you want to wear a Troy Aikman jersey to school, I have no affection for you. You are garbage. You're a garbage human. You have decided that you want to literally root against everyone else. You just want to be a contrarian, and I hope that is why I hate the Cowboys, because as long as they lose, those people are not right. There is nothing worse than watching those handful of scumbags celebrate at your party.
I don't want to get into all the scenario. Like, well, what if your dad was from Texas and he's in the FBI and he got relocated to Philly and then he raised you as a Cowboy fan? Do you not sort of? All right, I don't want to get into this. I do want to spend like a little bit of time. Like, I'm actually gonna cut the Phillies out of this episode because I was all wound up about them today, and then of course they come out with a great performance. Today they were winning like 8-3 when I switched over to the Celtics. Hopefully, okay, we got Ranger Suarez in there in the 7th. So hopefully they don't do it. They're winning 10-3 right now. Hopefully they don't do anything to get me twisted in the last 15 minutes of this episode, and then we'll go for 2 hours. But I do want to talk about the Naomi Osaka events from this week because it's certainly it's discussion worthy topic. So Sarah, why don't you lay out what happened at Roland Garros this week?
I'm happy to. This was going to be my penalty box if we didn't talk about it on the show tonight. I have plenty others. There's so many things that make me mad. But so if you do not know, Naomi Osaka, she is a prominent women's tennis player. I believe she is the second ranked women's tennis player in the world right now. She has sat at number 1. She's won 4 open tournaments. And going into Roland Garros, going into the French Open, she put out a statement. I saw it on social media. I think that's how she put it out, but it's neither really here or there how she did, and saying she will not be talking to the media. She recognizes that this is something that's being asked of her, but for her mental health, she is choosing not to do it. She's willing to accept the fines, but she suffers from anxiety and will not do press conferences after her matches. And I believe she completed one match. She won early round match. If it would be phenomenal if she lost. Not phenomenal in a good way. Notable, very notable if she lost and didn't do press. Was fined $15,000, and I don't know what organizations said it, but I believe it was the Grand Slam tournament said that more fines would be coming and she could potentially be disqualified from other tournaments. And in response to that, she dropped out. She said, I am not going to compete in the French Open for the sake of my mental health. And I encourage everyone to read her statements, get her take firsthand as opposed to my poor paraphrasing of it. But she has left the tournament because of the threat of stiffer fines and the distraction of her not doing press conferences.
So I have a couple questions. So question number 1 is the sort of, I feel like when I read the arguments, the anti-Osaka arguments, this one headlines it. She struggles on clay. Will she do press conferences after matches in Wimbledon, where she has a lot of success?
I haven't seen that take, and I don't. I'd say it's fair to ask, but perhaps not fair to accuse.
Well, I think you have to wait, right?
Yeah, you do have to wait, and it's something worth wondering out loud. But it's not the most compassionate response. If someone says, "This is my mental health here,"
Since when has
go,
this country's populace been compassionate about this kind of stuff?
"Oh, never, 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 never." Suck it up and deal. It's part of the job.
That's the other argument, right? This is the job. It's got requirements. My job, I have to give presentations at work, and it's not an option for me to just go like, I don't like talking to people. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to walk away from it.
Okay.
I want you to know I'm completely playing devil's advocate right now, because I will say if I had to name 25 athletes that I get really excited to see, Naomi Osaka is actually on that list.
Oh, she's great. I'm a big fan of hers. But I think the question for me comes down to, do we want our elite athletes to be more exclusive or more inclusive? Because it becomes, in the workplace, we are moving towards an area where we make accommodations for people. And for a long, long time, the mindset was, if you can't do the job, do a different one. And now in the workplace where the majority of us, work, I'm assuming that we don't have a lot of professional athletes listening to us tonight, but people do make accommodations for people with physical handicaps. They make accommodations for people with mental health issues. They make accommodations to make a more welcoming workplace, a more diverse workplace. So that's something we're moving to in ordinary life. And it hasn't quite hit professional sports. We have things like the You Can Play movement, to say, hey, we don't care about somebody's sexuality, gender identity. All we care about is whether you can play. That hasn't reached mental health yet, or we're having that conversation now, because it used to be, if you are an elite athlete, part of your job description is talking to the media, and we don't care if you don't like it. You can go up there and be Mike Richards and have a scowl on your face and give one-word answers. But
or Marshawn Lynch, right?
Or I'm Marshawn Lynch. I'm
right.
here just so I don't get fined. But
check the box, baby.
You have somebody who is being open and honest and saying, my mental health struggles. And I'm assuming she's being honest. I'm assuming she's not using this as a crutch, because, well, that's what we're supposed to do when someone tells us they're sick. You don't go, I'm going to need to see your blood work before I think you have diabetes. You assume somebody is telling you the truth when they talk about their mental health. And Gene has sent me his blood work, and he's now allowed to snack during the show. But even right there, let's think about something. Accommodations. They're having a water bottle on the back of your net was for a goalie, and I forget what he had, but he was facing dehydration issues. So he put a water bottle on the back of the net. Now every goalie in the league has it. And for Naomi to go, I'm struggling with my mental health, I can't do the press conferences. Maybe the response shouldn't be, well, we're going to fine you until you do, and then you might not be able to play. Maybe it should be, let's find out how you can meet your obligation to be available to press in a way that isn't destructive to your mental health. And, maybe she sits down with one reporter, and that one reporter fields questions from the field. Maybe it's on delay. Maybe it's something that's different. Maybe it's with cameras off. I don't know, but it's making an accommodation to allow more athletes to do what they do best, and to allow them to not buckle under the other burdens that aren't just playing the game.
Here's what I find funny. The shut up and ball crowd.
Yeah.
Right? You want to talk about, political feelings or, any of this stuff. It's like, hey, you're an athlete. Shut up and ball. Yeah. Okay, well, that's actually all she wants to do is shut up and ball. I feel like the anger about this is coming from the shut up and ball crowd, to be honest. I don't know. It's just, that's just what I'm picking up, and it's just like, well, just let the people play. Like, honestly, I don't give a shit. Like, when is the last like post game press conference that somebody actually took seriously? That you're like, you know, oh my God, like I got such insightful information about that. Like, oh, you hit the ball over the net. Like, how did you do it? Like, what was your strategy? I wanted to hit the ball over. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that, and especially the thing that I think that is interesting in this particular.
And just so Aiden in the chat knows, I am a registered Republican, so I am in your.
I think it's interesting because you know, I think there have been other examples, and I'm struggling to think of one now, where there have been athletes that have not wanted to do press conferences. There have been male athletes that have not wanted to do press conferences. And I think that it's refreshing that somebody has finally had the courage to be like, look, like this is just something that I struggle with, and this is why I don't want to do it. I don't think that anybody would choose, if they just were looking to weasel out of a press conference, to choose like, I'm going to go with I have mental illness, or I'm going to
it's
make
not
myself,
lying about it.
You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't seem like the kind of thing where you're going to draw less attention to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you're objectively trying to sort of take the spotlight away from yourself, you're not going to come out with sort of a take that's going to sort of invite more questions. I think that that's an interesting thing. I think that what we also need to look at is, especially if you look at some of the bigger team sports where you're going to have these experiences, and Terrell Owens sort of jumps out in my mind as somebody that sort of is the opposite side of this coin. That I think that what we've never sort of really understood is that there are going to be certain athletes that, by the nature of their own insecurities or anxieties or whatever, that they are going to, instead of like shy away from these sorts of things, that they are going to amplify their character to almost cartoonish levels to sort of compensate for what is clearly some sort of anxious feelings that they aren't coping with well. Terrell Owens in the whole press conference in the driveway sort of is the prime example of somebody that clearly that's anxiety sort of coming out in a very,
it's more like please stop talking.
Way,
please stop talking.
You know?
Please stop talking. Stop talking. But here's where I draw the line. A coach can never pull this. Totally off the table. Coach needs to face the media every time. And that's where all the gold comes from anyway. That's where you get all of your famous like post-game quotes. That's where you get playoffs. You want to talk about playoffs? You know, you play to win the game, or like, you know, we are who they thought that. Like, all those great quotes come from the coaches. The players are just like, whatever. I take it one game at a time. I don't want to hear that stuff anyway. So,
yeah, I just want to jump on like two things with that. One, I think you can make the obligation, you have to be available to the media, and then work with the individual to go, okay, if your anxiety doesn't let you do this, can we do that? What you work with it on a person by person basis. I would imagine just by the nature of coaching, it would be less inclined to come up. But again, the coach should have to face the media. If some coach is crippled by stage fright or whatever the case may be, maybe an assistant coach can do it. Or right now we're dealing with hypotheticals.
It's not bad.
Right now we're dealing with hypotheticals. But also the one thing that can't be ignored is who Naomi Osaka is. If you're unfamiliar with her, she represents Japan in her play. She has a Haitian father, a Japanese mother, and grew up in New York. And she was very outspoken with Breonna Taylor and Black Lives Matter. And part of this is she was almost the wrong mouthpiece for this to avoid criticism. The shut up and ball, contingent, there's going to be another contingent that said, oh, now you don't want to talk. You were outspoken about these social issues, but now you don't want to talk. And if that question comes from an honest place, I don't think it's a bad one. You might notice a theme here that if people are being genuine and trying to work through these things, I personally want to give them a long leash. I want there to be an allowance to ask the questions and maybe get it wrong. But if they're receptive to listening, I think it's a game changer. Martina Navratilova, her take on it wasn't great, but I see her get blasted for certain things. And Billie Jean King is a national fucking treasure. And her take on it was, hey, I know it's tough, but it's something we all have to do. And they're like, I can't believe Billie Jean King let us down. And everything she does lets you know that this is not a person without compassion. Maybe you go to someone like Billie Jean King and go, okay, here's what she thinks. She said, hey, we had to fight long and hard to get people to pay attention to the women's game as much as they did the men's. Sorry, I know this is hard, but I want you to do it. And I'm putting words in her mouth, but that was the sentiment. And we should go, thank you, Billie Jean. Here's something you might not consider, as opposed to, see, Billie Jean doesn't care. That conclusion, again, is supposing malice, is supposing someone being disingenuous. Whereas I think, and I don't know why I think this, but I think, Lord help me, people are mostly good. And that if we do try to be understanding, and if we do try to make allowances for people, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be rewarded. So I think I feel for her. My heart goes out to her. My heart breaks for her. But it was just a perfect storm of how this could go poorly, and it did.
Well, let's take a departure from this and go to where people are mostly bad, in the penalty box.
All right. Thank you, Dave. And I'm going to return serve right back to you. Dave, who is in your penalty box this evening?
Okay, I am going to put myself in the penalty box. And my mother today sent me a drawing that I did when I was very young. I think maybe 6 years old. And I want to bring it up on screen now. And here it is. And I would like the two of you to do maybe a little breakdown of where I went wrong with this picture. Maybe what my psychological state was when I was doing this picture, because I don't think any of my children would draw a picture like this. Just my first blush at this picture that I see, I have the Phillies losing, which to me is very telling.
Well, I look at it and it looks like they're in the midst of a comeback. Although that ball is totally getting caught by Golly, if that is Golly's name. Wait,
well, no,
the red team, I guess, would be the
Phillies. Offense here. Or I'm sorry, the Melts are in the offense. The Phillies are playing the field. At least that's the way it looks to me. And right. I believe that is yet another home run, because the left fielder is saying out of orbit.
Well, I mean, no one can say that you didn't know what your lot in life was going to be, Dave, because at a very early age, the Phillies are only down by 1 run, but it looks like at least 3 runs will score. I have a little hard telling.
If they're the batter is still in the batter's box, that's a grand slam.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're going down like 13 to 8 here at the very least. This is probably an Alvarado blown save.
Yeah,
I got it there eventually. So
I think
don't
my
know.
favorite.
Maybe
my
I
favorite
don't
is,
go in the penalty box. I'm so prescient in my
Do you see down the bottom at the what I assume can only be the Phillies dugout, which apparently has been buried along the border? Where I mean, the Mets have a bench at least, but somebody from the Phillies bench is calling for a new ball because clearly the one that they have is out of here. It's out of orbit. At first, I thought these were the people's names, which I think would have been even better if the second baseman's name was G. It's almost like a part of my name. It almost fits there.
I was wondering if that was
the
center fielder.
It's
or the
more of
second
the
baseman.
dialogue of what everyone was saying. So I think the other thing the Phillies have run into an issue with is I don't think that they have enough fielders. I feel like they're lacking some bodies. They should really think about investing in a second baseman. I mean, and at this time, the Phillies had a pretty good second baseman named Juan Samuel. I think that's probably why the Melts are doing so well, because this is right around the era of the '86 Miracle Melts. Yeah, I think that's probably why they were so popular. I wonder if that's the great grilled cheese Gary Carter there at the plate that's hitting this home run.
Well, he just cranked a granny and he says, "Neat."
All right. Well, and if it says anything about what I imagine you as a child, I'm assuming that was sarcasm.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah. So, Dave, I'm gonna get you out of the penalty box. That was too precious for words. So, and real quick, I'm sorry to the people who just listen to the show and don't stream it. You are getting homework when you get in front of a computer. Please either go to the painted lines.
We can post it on the Facebook page.
Oh, please do. Yeah. Please do. It's you need the visual there. So, no penalty for Dave DiOrio. Get back to your bench. Take the warning. Gene, who is in your penalty box this evening?
So this is something that sort of frustrates me, and I think the person or concept I'm putting in the penalty box is like the renaming of classic sporting events. I knew that the French Open was held at Roland Garros, but like I had never in my life until recently, like the last couple of days, ever heard of the event referred to as the place it was. Now, I know that they do that for Wimbledon. It's not called like the English Open for tennis, but the French Open was the French Open my whole life. The U.S. Open is not called the Arthur Ashe Open or whatever, because that's where, isn't that the name of the where it is in Queens up by where Shea used to be? It was something that we always talked about going to do. We should probably seriously think about doing that. But the other good example, the one that frustrates me the most, is that now the British Open golf tournament is just called the Open, which it's like, now you're just making me. You've already got me up at 4 a.m. watching golf, and now you're just trying to confuse me. So I don't get why. I'm going to be the one that's going to continue to screw it up. I don't know if there's a reason why I have to start calling the French Open something else now. It's always going to be the one that's on the different courts to me that I've never played on a clay court. It looks like fun. So yeah, that's my penalty box for tonight.
Okay, so in Gene's penalty box this evening is changing up things for no good reason. He doesn't like it when you rebrand. You're getting rebranded for 2 minutes into the penalty box.
Sarah, who's in your penalty box?
God, I don't know. I had several.
That's all the time we have.
We can ditch it. We can go. But the one I will say is what's going in the penalty box this evening is the battle between hockey and basketball. You're welcome to your preference, but I am done. I am sick. I am over hockey is so much better because of this, or basketball is so much better because of that. And one of the reasons is because it's such a charged argument. It didn't feel that way at the time. When I was in high school, I'm a huge hockey fan. Obviously, I still am. And it was like, yay, 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 my sport is best. And what I was unaware of at the time is, yay, 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 the white rich sport is best. So whether you're intending to have that conversation or not, just let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. You don't need to argue that your sport's better than the other or that there's some natural rivalry. You can like hockey and basketball. You can just like basketball. You can just like hockey. You can love curling. So let people enjoy what they enjoy. Stop coming up with false narratives of combative natures. You're getting a 2-minute penalty for unintentional race baiting. That's rather extreme for 2 minutes.
I was just going to say, like, hey, don't yuck someone else's yum.
There we go. Let's take this back to grade school.
Is that a little nicer?
That is.
All right, and I'm here just like, oh, all this stuff is just killing time between baseball seasons. So, that's the way I feel about it. All right, that's actually is all the time we have for tonight. If you haven't done so already, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, a special shout out tonight to Paul, Aiden, Jay Lutt, Sarah B., Vasilios, and Tim for all joining us in the conversation tonight. Thanks so much for watching and commenting. If you have any more time in your podcast listening week, be sure to check out the Whip Around for all the week's weird news. And please, please, please subscribe to the Painted Lines on YouTube or wherever you consume your social media for wall-to-wall Philly sports coverage, pop culture coverage. What else? We got gambling shows, all kinds of great content coming through on the Painted Line. So please subscribe there. We'll be back next Tuesday night at 9:15. As usual, hopefully we are in the middle of a round 2 playoff series by that point. We'll be talking more Phillies. Who the heck knows what else is going to come up in the next week? It's always like, what is happening? All right. So until then, have a great day at work, everybody. We are out of here.